The article that I want to talk about is called The Importance of Year-Round Soil Nutrient Analysis, which was just published in the USGA Green Section Record on March 1 of this year, 2024. And it's March 11th now. And it's by Chris Neff. I've ran across Chris over the years when I was in the sales. He was a superintendent over in Florida for a while. And he wrote this article. The article, like I said, is called The Importance of Year-Round Soil Nutrient Analysis. And the first paragraph is really all I want to talk about, maybe a little the second paragraph. But Chris says, after a colder than average winter in the southeast, it is safe to say that most in the golf course maintenance industry eagerly anticipate warmer temperatures and the emergence of turf from its dormant or slow-growing stage. One common trend observed during my travels so far in 2024 is preparing for the upcoming spring golf season by applying fertilizer. To adequately make decisions regarding these crucial fertilizer applications, it is imperative to conduct soil sampling throughout the year to assess soil properties and current nutrient levels, which play a vital or pivotal role in the overall health and performance of the course. To ensure optimal results, it is recommended that sampling be conducted at least 3 times annually. Here are just a few reasons why year-round soil sampling is a good idea. And he gives some reasons, and none of them are particularly valid or compelling at all. But I want to talk about 2 things in that paragraph. To say it's imperative to conduct soil sampling throughout the year, not just once a year or once every 2 or 3 years, which even then to say it's imperative to soil sample every 2 or 3 years is a stretch. But he's saying it's imperative to conduct soil sampling throughout the year, more than once a year. And he says it's recommended sampling be conducted at least 3 times a year. 3 times each year. This is coming from the USGA Green Section Record. Okay? I don't know where he's getting this information, but I seriously doubt he's getting it from any reputable soil scientist. I'm not familiar with any reputable soil scientist that would recommend sampling 3 times a year and make it imperative that that's done. I'm not aware of anybody. And not that that necessarily is a reason to not do it. I'm just saying that the people who do know and the knowledgeable experts in this area, I don't know of one that would recommend that because there's not a lot of evidence to support that. And there's some evidence to refute it, which is actually what I'm going to go into in a minute. So he has 3 reasons here. Monitoring nutrient levels and imbalances, assessing nutrient uptake, and enhancing environmental and economic sustainability. Okay, so let's go into each one of these individually just for a brief moment. Monitoring nutrient levels and imbalances. The only reason that I can think of that would be an evidence-based approach to monitor nutrient levels would be if you've had a pre-existing condition, a pre-existing nutrient deficiency, and you wanted to monitor that to make sure that let's say you've had a problem in the past and your turfgrass was unacceptable in the past because of a nutrient deficiency, and you wanted to, you've alleviated that. You applied phosphorus or whatever the case is, and you alleviated that deficiency, and you wanted to make sure that your nutrient levels were at an adequate level moving forward so you wouldn't experience that deficiency again, which is not a great reason, but it's okay. I'll go with that. That would be okay. Okay, that would be a reason to monitor nutrient levels. If you had a pre-existing deficiency, a pre-existing unacceptable turf, you've diagnosed it, you cured it, and you just wanted to maintain that over time, you wanted to make sure your nutrient levels were greater than that previous pre-existing level. Okay, no problem. But then he uses imbalances. I don't know what Chris means when he says imbalances, but he's treading on thin ice on that one. Okay. Nutrient balances. Okay. When you start using nutrient balances and the term nutrient imbalances, you start moving into the base saturation worlds and the calcium magnesium balance world, which is complete, it's nonsense. Okay. It's a grift. People use that in knowing it doesn't work to sell fertilizer. Okay. So be careful when you start using that term. But then he says assessing nutrient uptake. Okay, the next one is assessing nutrient uptake. And he talks about various things and, pH and rainfall and soil minerals and things like that. Effective availability. I'm not going to nitpick on that one. A soil test isn't really going to assess the nutrient uptake per se. Okay. You're not going to be able to determine how much was taken up into the plant by measuring what was in the soil. Okay. There's all sorts of fates of nutrients. One of them is plant uptake. But I don't know how you would be able to, with any confidence, determine how much got into the plant by measuring what was in the soil. And that goes for a number of nutrients, but whatever. Then it says enhancing environmental and economic sustainability. That is a huge assumption. What he's saying is regular 3 times a year soil sampling on golf courses would enhance the environmental and economic sustainability of the course. Okay? It says specifically, year-round soil sampling aligns with environmental and economic sustainability principles. Okay? By assessing the nutrient status of the soil, golf courses can optimize fertilizer applications and minimize the risk of nutrient runoff. Providing the correct amount of nutrients in each application demonstrates environmental stewardship, prudent financial management, and results in better conditions throughout the year. There is one other. Let me back up. There's an issue with that. But then up here he says, assessing nutrient, this ensures that the turf grass effectively utilizes nutrients and that fertilizers are only applied in the necessary amounts. So year-round soil sampling 3 times a year ensures that turf grass effectively utilizes nutrients. I have no idea how he's measuring that. And that fertilizers are only applied in the necessary amounts. So every nutrient that goes out, according to this argument, would be put out in only the necessary amounts of fertilizer. So there's no waste. There's no excessive amounts of phosphorus, no excessive amounts of potassium, and any other nutrient because you're doing 3 times a year soil sampling. That's his argument. These are horrible arguments. They're not supported by evidence. The third one is clearly refuted by evidence. Okay? So let's look at that. So all you have to do is go to this article, which I don't know if I've actually covered on this channel or not. I don't remember. I know I talked about it on another podcast, but I don't really remember if I did it on my own podcast. This is called Nutrient Use and Management Practices on United States Golf Courses. That was published by Shaddox, Unruh, Johnson, Brown, and Stacy. We published this a few years ago in Hort Technology. And we surveyed the nutrient usage on golf courses. And in here, we included prior questions about soil testing. We also added some new questions about soil testing because I wanted to know more about what is actually going on and is there a relationship between various practices and so forth. So in here, and if I haven't gone over this, I'll go over it at some point in more detail. But for today's purposes, when Chris is saying economic and environmental stewardship, basically you'll enhance environmental stewardship and enhance your economic, basically be better with your budget. That's not supported by evidence at all. I wanted to show that. In here, on table 10 and table 13, I'll go into this article in more detail later, but basically this article is looking at all the U.S. golf courses, and we wanted to know, basically nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium applications, what's common, what's not common, how you do it. And in here on table 10 is the frequency of soil extract used for analysis of phosphorus and non-phosphorus nutrients. Now, before this publication, as far as I'm aware, there had never been any data on the prevalence or usage of various soil tests on U.S. golf courses, at least a national survey. We didn't know. We had no idea, nationally what golf courses are using, what sort of soil extract are the people actually using. And this is broken out by regions, North Central, Northeast, Pacific, and Southeast, all these things. And then it has the overall U.S. average. And the extractants the options are saturated paste, Malic 3, Bray, Malic 1, Olson, and a modified Morgan extract. And in the United States, 47% of golf facilities reported they used saturated paste for phosphorus analysis. Phosphorus analysis, saturated paste. Now, I haven't gone into a whole lot of I don't think I've gone into any detail on soil testing yet. But saturated paste is not an evidence-based approach for phosphorus analysis. It's useful for salinity, it's useful for pH, okay, but not for phosphorus. And yet we have half of the golf courses in the United States reporting that they use it for phosphorus analysis. So if half are using an invalid extractant, why should they be sampling 3 times a year if they're sampling extractant is not an evidence-based extractant? They're not even using the correct extractant, right? 23% are using Malic 3, and all these other ones are valid, Bray and Malic. All these, depending on where you live and what location you're in and so forth, what type of soil you have and so forth. These are all valid extracts. But saturated paste is not an extract that's an evidence-based extract for phosphorus on turf grasses. So it should be none. They shouldn't be soil testing at all if that's what they're using. If they're using saturated paste to determine phosphorus and then apply phosphorus, there should be zero sampling, basically. That's what that says. All right. But yet we have the USGA green section saying you should sample 3 times a year. So that's a problem, that they're not even using the correct extract. But let's make the case even stronger. If you go down to table 13, which is also a new table, these questions had not been asked in the past, or not asked in this particular way, or sorry, not analyzed in this particular way. Table 13 shows the association between management practices used with the intent of reducing reliance on applied nutrients. So the question, that's exactly how the question was worded on the survey. Do you engage in this management practice with the intent of reducing reliance on applied nutrients? And the options were, do you fertilize based on soil test results? Do you return clippings? Do you use precision fertilizer applications? And you can read down the whole list. Okay. The only management practice on this list, and these are things including stop overseeding, compost on site, change turf cultivar, use new fertilizer guidelines, reduce overseeding, all these things, use plant growth models, all these things. The only option that resulted in an increase in nutrients on nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium was if you fertilize based on soil test results. It's the only one. There's other ones on here that result in what you would hope we would result in. We result in less usage. Like, for example, if you return clippings, you result in less phosphorus usage. If you use precision fertilizer application, there's an association between that and using less phosphorus and so forth. Okay, so there's other options. These are risk factors, basically. And there is some association between some of these risk factors and a reduction in phosphorus usage, right? Reduced turf acres, there's a reduction of phosphorus usage, and there's a reduction in potassium usage as well. But the risk factor associated with increases in nitrogen, increases in phosphorus, and increases in potassium was fertilizing based on soil test results. So if you're going to make an argument that you should sample not only once a year, you should sample 3 times a year because it enhances environmental and economic sustainability, I'm not buying it. Because I haven't seen any evidence to support it, and here's evidence staring us right in the face, refuting it. Okay? If you fertilize based on soil test results, you used approximately 1.5 more tons of nitrogen per year than if you didn't. You used nearly twice as much potassium. You went from 1.7 tons per year to a little over 3 tons of potassium per year. This is for an 18-hole golf course, I believe. This is how I analyzed that, I think. 18-hole equivalent, I believe. So you're almost doubling the potassium if you soil test. You're almost doubling the nitrogen if you soil test. And the phosphorus goes from 0.3 tons to 0.6 tons. So you are doubling the phosphorus if you soil test. So the only question is, are all those extra nutrients actually needed by the turf grass? Right? We're unable to answer that question. We don't know. The likelihood is very low, because that would mean that every golf course that's not sampling would have unacceptable turf grass. If you're not soil sampling, then you would fit into the was the management practice used no category, right? And if you're not soil sampling, then your turf would be unacceptable. And if you are soil sampling, you're applying these nutrients and your turf is acceptable, then that'd be a good argument to continue to apply these these nutrients, these needed nutrients in that case. But as we're going to talk about today with this potassium column right here, we're going from 1.7 tons to 3 tons per course per year with potassium. And we found in the last couple articles, we're going to find again today, and the remaining articles basically, that there's really no value to applying all of that potassium. There is value occasionally to applying some potassium at some times of the year on some turf grasses. That's true. But applying these excessive rates of potassium are not warranted in almost every case. This article is highly questionable. I don't know where they're getting it from, and I suspect there's not as soil scientists reviewing or editing this content before they go out. Because it's not imperative, don't believe that, it is not imperative to conduct soil sampling 3 times a year. By any stretch of the imagination, that's not imperative. Most courses that I know do perfectly fine sampling, say 6 greens 1 year, and then they just rotate. So they're sampling the same green every 3 years or so, the same fairway every 3 years, and they just rotate the other 6 and so forth. So they're doing all 18 holes on a 3-year cycle. Okay. And they're fine. Doing it 3 times a year is absolutely absurd. Okay. I don't see any evidence to support that, and there's no reason why you should believe it or do it.